would like to welcome Jackie
Thank you.
to our ExN Conversations. Pleasure to have you. Thank you for making time to come and see us and record it. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. So, who is Jackie today?
Mhm. Well, I'm Scottish. I was born in Scotland. I was brought in, up, raised, educated in Scotland. Moved to London in 2011 with my husband and two children, two girls, Eva and Isla. My educational background is finance economics and undergraduate, postgraduate, professional exams. I did 10 years in asset management. So that was managing US equity portfolio. I then moved to consultancy, which is mainly derivatives, interest rate, and foreign exchange, and then took that business through kind of multiple iterations of capital raising and ownership, and still remain within that sphere of finance today, but with a company called Chatham Financial, where I am a shareholder as well as on the board of directors. I'm the managing partner heading up all of EMEA and the APAC business operationally. So yeah, married with two children. As I say, my children are now mini adults, adult age, but not quite taking adult responsibilities.
Yeah, we just discussed that, didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they're still on the P&L.
yeah, yeah.
So that's one of my ambitions for the next few years. And yeah, I mean, I guess we know each other through the medium of sport. You're much more serious about it than I am, but
Just trying to keep on the straight and narrow. Serious, not so sure.
yeah, sport's always been a kind of big part of my life, but it's probably gone through cycles, through various stages. I was a swimmer. That's obviously where we met in the triathlon club. Still loved swimming as a recreational sport as well as for general health and fitness. Kind of fun fact though, when I was at university in my undergraduate, I was studying economics. And I realized that they were running like aerobics classes. Now, obviously, I'm old, right? So this was kind of back in the early 90s. And there was a big new craze called step aerobics that came out. And I realized that it was actually quite easy to teach it. So I went to the local community college and did like a night class in to teach aerobics.
How old were you?
I was 19.
So that's before the your finance kind of.
I did it at the same time.
Oh wow! Just safety net,
Hmm.
just in
Yeah.
case.
I needed to earn money.
Right.
I needed to earn money. Like, I came from a background where I was the first person in my family to go to university. There wasn't a financial cushion. There was no financial support, and I worked 5 part-time jobs while I was at university, and I thought I could do this. So I went and did this teaching qualification to teach step aerobics. And when the certificate came through, it went to my home address, and my mum opened it and was like, I thought you were studying economics. What's this? Like exercise to music. So I actually became a aerobics instructor part time, and
Wow.
I earned really good money,
Really?
which paid for the rest of my university career.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I've always taken that kind of love of sport. But where I am today, I'm almost 53. The
Looking
hard,
good. Well done.
you have to say that. I'm here as your
Yeah.
guest. Come on.
Give it more, Vinny. Is that it?
Yeah, I think, coming into my 50s, I don't do anywhere near the same amount of cardio work that I used to do. I get injured much more easily than I ever did before. So I've just got to be really aware of that. Currently, still nursing a hip injury. So I moved much more to like Pilates. During COVID, actually, I bought a reformer at home,
Oh
and
yeah.
I
Yeah.
did an online course so that I could choreograph the routines and like kind of do my own thing.
Just in case the finances not one work
You
out.
never know, right? You never know. There might be a whole other chapter.
Coming.
Watch the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that whole kind of health and fitness, kind of general sport, going through being really competitive about it to it being more recreational, through 2 pregnancies, I swam every day, and I was grateful for the fact that I was a real swimmer. Like I could swim properly, so I could use
So
it
what
for
were you
exercise.
when you say being competitive in terms of a club? You were part of a
Yeah, and I
club?
swam at university as
Oh, really?
well. And I was, eh, I was also a pool lifeguard. So that was one of my other part-time jobs. So it was always kind of linked to the swimming, and I think I got my two daughters into swimming as well on the whole basis of no matter where you are in the world, you can swim and it's cheap, right? All you need is goggles and a swimsuit.
Yeah, yeah.
And as I say, through my two pregnancies, that's the way I kept fit without putting pressure on your joints, etc. And in fact, both my girls were water births. They were both born in the pool.
Oh, wow.
So we've always kept that kind of water theme.
Proper aqua family.
Proper aqua family.
Yeah, 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 that's cool. Um, how did you get into the finances, and what was kind of
Mhm.
a main reason for you to um
Yeah, I think people always expect there to be some big grand plan, especially because I've been successful in my career and I've been through many big changes in the market, like, and we might talk about that a bit later, just some like real stress points in the market.
mm,
But there wasn't really any big grand plan at all. I had a lecturer at university who basically said to me, "You're really good at this." Like, I studied economics, I did finances, extra courses. And I thought, oh, and I enjoy it. But I had no clue. I literally had no clue. I had no mentors. I had no one to kind of go to say, is this the career I should consider? And I actually think that actually was a benefit for me because I think nowadays
stupidity is bliss.
you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm,
So I went into, a junior kind of analyst position for an asset manager based in Glasgow, and literally was a real baptism of fire. But as I say, I was good at it. I learned really quickly. I did professional exams, and I thought this is an amazing world to be in. But one of the questions I used to get was, "Oh, were you never kind of daunted by the fact that there were very few females?" I mean, there are more now, but there's still very few females in the industry. And again, I was like, yeah, I didn't even notice. Like,
didn't give a shit.
I just didn't. It just didn't even register.
Wow.
And there's also
So do you think do you think in Glasgow was tougher, even tougher, or do you think it would be a bit more celebrated because it's so unique? What was it? Or you just
yeah, just wasn't even. Maybe I was like naive about it. I just didn't think it was even a thing.
because
I
it's heavily dominated, male dominated
yes,
industry, heavily.
yes.
Probably like you say now is a little bit changing into a bit more.
I would say actually one of the issues back then, so sort of the mid 90s when I was starting in my finance career, there was definitely many more men than women. But actually, in Scotland in particular, it was an industry that was preserved, I would say, for more of the kind of middle classes. Certainly, people that went to private schools. And so when people talk about diversity with me within finance, they always think I'm talking about gender diversity.
Right, right.
But actually, there was very little socioeconomic diversity. And if I were to be a little bit concerned about could I fit in here, it was nothing to do with my gender. It was much more to do with my socioeconomic background. I came, as I say, my mum and dad, my dad left before I was born. So my mum brought myself and my sister. And again, I also wondered that there's like three women running the house. We took all had to take responsibility quite young. My mum worked, she's trying to just kind of survive. So there was no kind of gender, like, oh, the man does this and the woman does it just wasn't a thing. So I
Mm,
didn't have any of that lens
interesting. That's so
of
interesting.
how I lived the life, but I felt it from a socioeconomic perspective, where you didn't maybe felt, oh, I didn't go to the right schools, and oh, all these people are all part of this kind of clique together. And I'd say that was more dominant back
Right.
then. So as we think about diversity today, obviously
Yeah, it's a very, color, sex.
everything,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just like visual.
Mm,
It's also,
I
and
can.
I'm a huge believer in diversity for diversity of thought. Like you get sort of like cognitive herding where people have all come from the same backgrounds and they all think the same. And I think there's a real big opportunity within the industry I work in for
But how?
diversity from that perspective.
But how does that work on the ground in terms of, okay, so let's say you got, five, five candidates. Would
Mm,
you choose just because for sake of diversity, or you choose for
mm,
capabilities, abilities? Wait, is
yeah,
a tough one, huh?
yeah, controversial.
Yeah,
So I'm going to say it from my lens, and I've said this in other interviews and received a bit of trolling for
I
for
can
what I
imagine. Yeah,
say.
of course you can't say the right thing.
This is from my perspective. I believe in it's about getting the right people for the job. And whenever I've been asked about should you have diversity targets or quotas, I've always said no. I just don't believe you should. Should you have intention on how you hire people to ensure that you're capturing the broadest base of candidates possible? Of course you should. So the intention is much more so for me it's about equality of opportunity and it's not about equality of outcome because the outcome is it's got to be the best person for the job. And I've seen it in recent times where people are in roles to meet diversity targets or for something other than them being the bit, and it's not good for them either. If they're
Right.
not technically competent or they're not confident or they can't learn the job, that's no good for a person's self-confidence. But I know it is a balance, but having seen how other countries who may have put quotas in place, like specific targets, I feel that, and then going back to the gender diversity point, that that might put women on a bit of a back foot. I've had people say it to me before when I've been in meetings and I've been the only female, and they're like, "Oh, you're the diversity hire." No, I'm really good at my job.
Yeah, exactly. I know what I'm
Like it
doing.
just, but it doesn't bother me because people say, "Oh my gosh, you not get really offended," and I'm like, "No, because that's a them problem. That's not a me problem." Like,
What an attitude, but
yeah,
that's a good attitude to have.
yeah,
And plus, all of attention.
just like,
Hey,
yeah,
it's
whatever.
yeah,
Where you're in a meeting and someone makes the assumption that you're there to pour the tea, and I'm like, right, I can pour the tea. I have no issue with that at all. So
no chip on the shoulder.
don't take it personally. That's a them problem.
Mm.
So yeah, so the whole diversity thing, huge topic,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
What skill set or natural skill set that you had when you growing up, and when you start noticing, going like, oh, I could be in finance or should go to university? Is that lecture when you mentioned just previously a lecture in a school said you should
Mhm.
do economics, or
Mhm.
was it, or was it your own choice and you go like, I'm good at maths, or I'm good at what was a
Yeah, so it was I did it. Left school at 17, so in Scotland you can stay on to 18 if you want. I didn't go to a brilliant school, and there wasn't a great. I couldn't do economics at school. It just wasn't available. It was a very kind of like the bare level of the curriculum, and the Scottish education system back then was top notch.
oh really
I mean, it's not now. Scottish government decided rather than fall down the rankings, they would just stop submitting the numbers. I mean, the Scottish education system is in a real mess. But anyway, that's kind of by the by. Maybe my next chapter is Scottish politics. Watch the space. Um, but back then, the Scottish education was very good. I mean, Scotland's produced, if you look like
yeah
mathematicians, economists,
yeah
engineers, like real, all the big famous names. So, I mean, I was good enough at maths. I actually was better at English. And your question about, what is it that drives you into a particular career or makes you successful in that career? I think for me, it sounds a little bit cliched, but I genuinely was curious about everything. And I was a voracious reader. And
really
like I read hundreds of books, couldn't afford to buy any. So we had a little local library and they gave me, this is showing my age, you had a library ticket and you were allowed to get 3 books out at a time. But I was churning through them so quickly, they gave me an adult ticket where you could get 6 books out at a time. And I would go and have access to the adult library, even though I was only like 10 years old. And I mean, I would literally go through those books in days on everything like history, literature, fiction, nonfiction, everything. I still read like that's my kind
that's
of
the thing.
escape and learning. So I think just being naturally curious in general, or maybe being a little bit of a pain, like, but why does that work like that? Or why does that person do that? Or how did that happen? Like constantly asking the question, even when you're very
Curious
young.
minds,
Yep. And just always wanting to learn, but not with this whole drive of I'm gonna learn, I'm gonna learn. It just
genuinely
I think
interested.
that's just your natural personality or not. So I think moving into economics, I mean, it is a bit of a balance between like kind of a lot of reading all the theories, but you've got to know the kind of mathematics behind how do you measure inflation, how do you measure GDP, and etc. So it was a nice mix. But again, it was this lecturer. So see, I left school at 17 and I did a kind of bridge year before I went to university at like a local college. So instead of doing a sixth year at school and doing more what was hires back then in the Scottish education system, I did this year. And that was the first time I had taken an economics class. And it was the lecturer that headed up the economics department in that college that took me aside and said, like, you're really good, like, you're really good at this. And to the extent that when I finished my undergraduate degree, and then again, I know now the whole grading system for degrees is different, but I graduated with a first class in economics, which I think I was the first person in, I'm going to say 10 years or something, to get a first in that degree from that institution. So no one had been granted a first class. And my decision at that point was I was going to be an academic. So I got a funded PhD place and was going to stay in academia and be this research economist. And then I did a secondment at the Royal Bank of Scotland with the chief economist, like doing real proper market research.
How old are you then?
I was 21,
Wow.
and I just thought, you know,
Show me the money.
so that's an interesting point, Vinny. And it's hard to kind of say this out loud because people then think you're a bit weak. I am not money motivated at all. I like having
It
nice
showed.
things.
But it's
I'm
we
just
always,
not.
but it's always showed.
I'm not. And my husband and I, so he's also in finance. He's in fixed income, and he always says to me, "You should never say that out loud." That's like that. People want to, but they want to look at people that have got drive and like
To
I want
follow
to
the money.
earn money.
So yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, no, the financial success that comes with having a good career, etc., is, of course, it's great, but it's great because it gives you choices. That's all it does. It gives you choices. And I just believe if you're solely motivated by the money only, you'll end up making career choices that are not going to fulfill you as much because
Yeah,
the money won't always be there.
you're quite big on life work balance. It's not.
Mm,
It's, and when you said, and I think I read a little saying,
mm,
you said choose you almost like I say choose a profession or choose a job that you enjoy, so it doesn't look like it's a work-life balance. It's like you enjoy it. What you do, like, me
mm.
personally, now I'm like, I love it. I don't look at it. Somebody said, oh, you're going to work on Sunday. I'm like, it's not work.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah. So if you choose something that doesn't fulfill you, and don't get me wrong, do you need to love every tiny little aspect of every part of your job? Of course not, right? There are parts of the job which might be a bit more boring, or I travel all the time, which is amazing experiences, and I'm lucky to have traveled literally all over the world, other than South America. But that comes with a downside, right? You give up your weekends. I'm constantly buying. I buy tickets for concerts and theatre like a year in advance, and then it gets to a week before and I'm like, I can't go. Like you just,
just call me.
yeah.
I'll slip in.
Okay, I'll remember that. So it's got to be something that drives you enough that you're prepared to make those sacrifices. You don't always make them like being ecstatically happy about it, but if you don't love what you do and it doesn't drive the purpose in you, then you'll resent making those
Yeah,
choices. Hmm.
yeah, definitely. um and how do you handle the leadership, um, and in a personal crisis? You mentioned that in when you were making one of the biggest deals, was it 13.6 million deal buyout? And yeah,
That's not in the public domain.
oh,
How
was it
did you
not?
find that
Was it not?
out?
I'm sure. It,
Yeah, we did a private transaction. So the company that I was the CEO of, so it was a small advisory firm called JC Rathbone Associates, a wonderful firm r- founded and run by John Rathbone, his name in the title of the company. And he was coming up to kind of retire, as founders start to step down and they look for their succession planning. But it took longer than it should have done. These things always do. Like you think, oh, it'll take a year. It took 5 years. And we were very close to, so we'd gone out to raise external capital, which to allow him to retire, sell his shares in the business to me and other my other fellow directors, but we needed third party capital to come in to help support the transaction. And we'd been working on it for a long time, and we were really pretty close when John sadly was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And from the day he was diagnosed, they were like, "There's no treatment. I mean, we're not even going to try. It's basically end of life care." And so someone that I had worked for, I was in the business that bore his name, but at the same time, looking at the whole team of people that I had hired, lots of them, and worked with them for many years, and saying, I have a responsibility to them as well to ensure the continuation of the business. So we need to get this deal done. Um, and the decision has to be made around, do we wait for the inevitable, for John to pass, and then we'll pick up where we left off? Or do we go pedal to metal and try and condense the timetable to get this transaction done? And made the decision to do the latter, which was absolutely, in hindsight, was absolutely the right thing to do. But, really probably the toughest kind of 6 weeks of my career, because I work on the basis that whatever's thrown at you, you just work really hard and you just get it done. Just get it done. But
Mhm.
when there's so many factors outside your control, one being the fact that the major shareholder was on his deathbed,
Yeah, yeah.
and we needed him to be signing documents, etc. It was really, really tough, sleeping in the office like 24/7, trying to corral other, because you've got lawyers and advisors, but the capital was coming from a firm called Connection Capital. They were the ones making the investment, and kind of shout out to Miles Otway, who led the transaction on their side.
And that's
He's
a English company, or
Yeah,
yeah.
so kind of small private equity investor. And people give private equity a hard time, or they're just after the returns, and they want all the big money and etc. They were a great partner, and that period of time when I was trying really hard to get that transaction done, they were he was amazing, and he knows that. He's now in a new private equity of his own called AMA Capital, and I'm still kind of working with him and his team in a different capacity, because we built a very close relationship during that time. So I think that's where one thing I had to learn. As I say, when you're up against it, my philosophy is just cut everything else out and just focus and just get it. You will get it done. That was one when I had to say, I can't do this myself. Like, I need to really lean on other people to help drive. So we completed the transaction. I think it was the 30th of August. It was the bank holiday weekend. I remember that August bank holiday weekend. And John Rathbone died it's like the 17th of September. It was literally 2 weeks later. So we just got it done in time, kind
Oh.
of saved the business. And
Mm.
then we went on to grow even more. And then Chatham came in and acquired us, and we've grown even more. So, as I say, in hindsight, it was the right decision. But at that point in time, that balance of professional and personal, um, I mean, not quite at odds with each other, but you're making a decision in a very emotive environment.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
sounds tough. And how does respect versus popularity in the leadership?
Yeah, I've been asked this question before, which is, um, and this is going back to a little bit to the gender point. Again, slightly controversial, but through my lens, women generally are more likely to be like people pleasers
Yeah.
than men. Um, they're more amiable. That's just a more, and I'm making a sweeping generalization. So, but
Well,
just
yeah, of
saying
course, yeah.
in general. So people then think for women in very senior positions in my industry, that you must be a complete biatch. Like, you must be in order to get that far. And I just totally disagree with that. But
Oh,
at the
really?
same time, you do have to recognize that if you are a natural people pleaser, that you will be in situations where you just will not be able to drive success because you running a big team of people, they have to respect you because you're expecting them to work really hard for you, but you don't need to be popular in the be the cool girl, oh, everyone likes me, and you just it's sometimes impossible to be both. Uh, I'm sure you could talk to some of my colleagues and some of them will say, I don't like her that much, but I respect what she does, and she works hard and she sets
Yeah.
the vision or whatever. There might be other people that say, no, well, I really like her, and I'm happy to have her to my birthday party, or
And I'm
like
guessing
for
you
my
don't give a
social.
shit either way.
I I I do. It'd be unfair to say that I don't care because there is something. I mentioned about this other interview I did, and I kind of got trolled for some of the things I said,
Mm,
and it's hard not to take that personally. But the way I do think about it is if someone doesn't like you in a professional context, but they still respect you, that's good enough. If someone doesn't like you, it usually is a them problem. And so
yeah.
again, I try and just put it back to them. And then I always say,
That's a good mindset.
yeah. But also, if it's someone that really matters to me, like the opinions, because everyone has an opinion about everything, right? It's not always based on fact or evidence.
Yeah, yeah.
But, if like my husband or my sister or my children, now they're adults, if they thought badly of a decision I'd made or something I'd done, that's much more meaningful than, some kind of random person 10 steps away from you that suddenly say, "Oh, well, I don't like Jackie Bowie." I'm like, "All right, okay, well, that's fine. That's fine because you don't need to like me." But that takes a bit of maturity, I think, to get to that point. And I think, I mean, you have a daughter, so it'd be interesting. I heard someone say this quote once. I can't recall who it was. Someone who had two daughters, and he was talking about how they're people pleasers. And he said, I literally send them out to school every day with a go and disappoint someone. That's your target for today. And get comfortable with that. Get comfortable with that. Like, why do you have this need to be constantly? It's exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my daughter went through a phase when she struggled with her
Mm,
confidence, and then she wanted
mhm,
everyone needs, and I think we all suffer from that. I mean, males and the females, we all want to be liked. Really,
mhm.
it's so much more nicer, right? Be
Yeah,
the, you know,
I don't
you,
know. Maybe I'd take it the other way, which is it doesn't feel nice to be
yeah,
disliked. So I'm gonna go for I'm either kind of ambivalent. I'm like, yeah, whatever, or it's nice to be liked. But I sort of, yeah, I can't put emotional energy into that. It's too distracting. And if it's someone who's not important to me or important to my life, then I can just discount it.
yeah, fair enough.
Hmm.
We have touched on the glass ceiling.
Hmm.
Maybe can explain what the glass ceiling does mean
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
industry, a little bit, and expand on that.
Hmm. So the first question is, does it exist? And I've had lots of conversations with people around this. So this glass ceiling, meaning that, women in industry, finance being one, but other male dominated industries, can only ever get so far. And then they can look through the glass up and they'll never get higher. And because all the men are, further up the ladder than they are. And again, I'm kind of saying, well, show me the evidence for that. And people will say, well, if you look at the number of FTSE 100 CEOs that are men versus women, okay, so that is a data point that doesn't prove your theory. Because if you look at the entire pool of people who are able and competent to do that role and want to do that role, which is also another factor,
Mm,
there it's more men than women, right? It just is. They're just, and it partly is related to, and goes on to another, a slightly controversial topic though, about women early in their careers might be on the same trajectory as men, but then step off because at the moment, biologically,
yeah,
they're
family.
women are going off to have children. And that breaks. their trajectory. So by the time you might be in a position for a very kind of senior leadership role, women just don't have the same number of years of experience, like for like, to men. So they're not qualified to be at that
But how
level.
did you do it?
So then the question is, so how do you fix that?
Mm.
And I say, well, you have to wind it all the way back to when women are earlier in their careers, and coach them and help them to take a long-term decision. Also, if they do take time out to have a family and multiple, they could have multiple children and hence be off another 6 months and then maybe another 6 months or whatever. How do you then make sure that if they still want it? Because I keep coming back to this, like a lot of women
Like I did, yeah.
they
Like,
don't want it. They're not going back to the general discussion we're having about sacrifice, etc. They don't want to make those sacrifices. That's absolutely fine. That you're making an intentional choice. That is not for me. But for those that do and still want to, have a family, how do you make sure that when they come back to the workforce, or back to their old job, that they are able to kind of regain that same trajectory? And we can work hard. Businesses, we work hard on that. Um, but I do think it's a two-way street. That when you come back to work after having had children, having some time off, that you have to realize you have been out of the market. And I'm talking about
yeah,
my
it's like having a
industry.
break. It's irrelevant
In
for
financial
reasons.
services,
Yeah.
the markets change. So, I mean, especially if you'd gone out on maternity leave in 2008 and come back in 2011. I mean, been through the biggest global financial crisis the markets had ever seen. The things were totally different. So you've got to be very then intentional about saying, I have to up my game. I might have to relearn some things. I may have to consider a different role in the organization.
And be
So
okay with it.
yeah, it has to be two-way. But I do come back to this point where I don't know how many other senior females you could, I mean, you interview people like me and you say, well, you did it, you stayed in your career, very senior role within a financial services firm. But if you went out and polled 100 women just in general, I'd be interested to know, because I know a lot of my peer group they don't want to do it. They want to have a career, they want to earn their own money, but they don't want to pursue this kind of all the way to the top. It's just not, they don't want to make the sacrifices, or it's just not for them. It's not
Mm.
for everyone. Through my lens and just from the experience I've had, is I think the mistakes I've seen some people make is when they decide to have children and have a family, which is, wonderful experience. And I, just to make the point, I do not believe for a second that it has to be either or, where people say, oh, you've got this amazing career, being super successful, so you must forfeit a family life. Or if you want to be, a mother, a wife, whatever, that you have to forfeit career success, right? I do believe you can do both, but going back to the point of, you have to be prepared for the sacrifices that come with it. Um, I believe that when women go off and have a family or take that break, that some of them make decisions based on a very short term view. And when I've talked to females in that position, I'll say, you've just had a baby, a major physical trauma, hugely emotional and hormonal shift in your body. Don't make a decision on something that's going to impact your career for the next 20 years. And what I mean by that is when they say, I'm not going to go back to work.
Mm.
I'm just going to, I might take 5 years, have some more children, and then I'll think about what that looks like. And I say, well, what do you think that looks like in 5 years?
When I look at the CV,
Mm,
something like that, the
mm-hmm,
answer is very clear.
mm-hmm,
I mean,
mm,
diversity is great. We'd like
mm-hmm,
to employ you, but
mm.
there's a guy there who doesn't have a 5-year gap in his CV.
Yeah, so again, but I think businesses then need to say, and this is how I have done it, is I'd say, well, okay, both candidates are technically competent. someone returning to the workforce after a break for whatever reason might need a bit more time,
to
to
ease in.
like coaching, learning. But we make decisions for the long term. So I say, well, what does this person look like in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in this business? Actually, the fact that this person's had a gap in their career, and if they're the right person and they're willing to like learn and come back into the business and realize that maybe they're not going to pick up where they left off. Like they have to be ready to learn and change. And even in this environment today with the AI shifts and you've got to constantly be open minded to learn. But yes, I think the challenge is, I think women that I've either friends or professional contacts, they make a decision on a short term. It's just so tough with a young baby and the commuting and working and the stress, and childcare is so expensive and all of that. You know what? I'm just going to like be a stay-at-home mum for a few years and then I'll reconsider in the future. And I say that might still be the right decision, but think it through on what does it look like in 5 years and 10 years, 15 years? What does your family life look like when it's not a young baby and you're up half the night? But and the way I looked at it is, I mean, the cost of childcare is just crazy expensive, right? So what people say is, well, there's no point in me going back to work because my net pay, it's all going to go in childcare. And I have two responses to that. Say, okay, well, surely you have a joint income. So why is it just your net pay? Like look at it as your like your household income.
Mm,
And secondly, the way I would view it is it's the investment in your career, exactly the same as your education. Like you went to university. I mean, we didn't pay tuition fees, but now, of course, with kids having to pay tuition. But you go to university with years where you're not earning other than part-time jobs. You're probably running up a bit of debt. You're kind of living poor, but you do it because it's an investment in your long-term career. And what I say to females is, so you're willing to do that. Why wouldn't you apply the same logic in the first couple of years when your kids are young before they go to school?
right.
It it financially, I know how hard it is, like paying for childcare when then you've got nothing left at the end of the month because it's all gone out. But I say, okay, but I'm going to have like a 45-year career. So why would I make a financial decision based just on the next five? I'm trying to take a very long
But
term view.
that's you're very pragmatic. You that
Take the
and that's
long term. Hmm.
you see, and that's not the strength, genuinely speaking. And again, the one that come across as a bigot or sound sexist, but that's not the strength of a majority of women.
I wouldn't even
Run
say
is
women. I would say people. I wouldn't even just say it's
yeah,
women. Like
maybe.
take the long term view. Like really take the long term view, which it, a slight segue, different topic, but I think just as important, which is and kind of hinted that I'd considered for a time that I might pursue a political career. And one of the things I've really thought about is I think the level of financial education in schools and for women in general is so weak. And it comes back to that point of people don't take a long term view. They just don't take a long term view. And then you get into situations where you see kids leaving school,
Haven't got a clue what's going on.
and I'm not saying you have to be teaching them like option pricing mathematics, but they should understand compound interest. They should understand how a mortgage works.
100%.
And they should understand that a little bit of forfeiting. I'm not saying you'd have to live a sad life and not have any fun, but like forfeiting a small bit of short term personal consumption, the power of compounding then means in 20 years' time, you might have more choices. I want to
Mm,
take a career break. Well, I can do that because, I've
it's
saved.
an investment. Is looking as an investment rather than sacrifice, right?
But again, all just trying to get people to think long term. So I don't think it is just a female thing. I think generally, and I believe financial education is the key thing that's missing here in the UK. And if people do not understand how compound interest works, even how the kind of basic stock market investment, kids talking about their crypto trading and all of that, none of that. I'm just talking about stable investments so that in the long term, you've got a financial cushion that gives you choices. I mean,
Mm.
so many. and not that you always want to think the worst all the time, but I know women that get, you know, sadly, maybe their husband dies young or they get divorced and they don't understand how their pension works and they don't understand how they need to think about their retirement as a single person or as a widow or a divorcee because her husband took care of all of that.
Well,
Well, hopefully. But so financial education, the theme is decisions. You should make decisions based on the long term, and that's around health, education, career, and I think if more people in general kind of thought like that without over engineering every decision in a spreadsheet all the time,
sure.
then we would be in kind of better shape with general financial awareness.
And let's talk about mentorship
Hmm.
and how
Hmm.
important it is to you, and what does that mean, and how what's your approach and
Yeah.
ideology?
So people generally ask me, "Oh, who was your mentor?" And I said, I didn't have any formal mentorships. As I say, I think there's been a few people throughout my career that have um, identified something in me and encouraged me to build on it. And so I'd say that that's informal mentorship, as I say. So this lecturer, when I was at college, and then when I went into asset management, someone I worked for, again, he just kind of spotted something and encouraged me to, it wasn't a phrase back then, but I suppose the today phrase is like lean in more, like be visible, have a voice. You've got something meaningful to say. Don't be shy. You're in a massive big meeting room with all men who are very senior, and you're like, oh, I don't want to know. I don't know if I'm going to speak. So that sort of encouragement. I think the other way around, mentorships become more kind of formalized within businesses now. I generally find the more natural evolution of finding mentors works better. Sometimes if you force people together and say, "Oh, we're a great firm, we'll give you a mentor," and then you buddy them up with someone and there's no chemistry between them
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
they don't get on. So I think mentorship can evolve kind of informally, and I I think it's everyone's responsibility. It's the title of a movie actually, is it that Pay It Forward? Like people have done things for you that have like helped you either make decisions or in your career or whatever personal situations. You should, if everyone always paid that forward, you would have this multiplier effect. And I always had a random email come in from someone that was just a young graduate, like job hunting. And I always reply and people always say to me, you know, you're the most senior person in the organization in London. You know, I get lots of people go through LinkedIn or they find your email address. And I say, like, but you have a responsibility.
Mm,
This person's just trying to find a job, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like, so I
That's
might
us.
not have anything for them, but I'll try. I think if I could introduce them to three or four people, and those three or four people introduce them to three or more people, then you can kind of get this multiplier effect. And it's the same with mentoring. Like I think about things that people have done and helped me. So I'm always kind of very open. And I've mentored lots of people formally and informally throughout my career, but it can't be forced. And I would hope the people I've worked with, or even people I know personally, that they would know that I have a very kind of open. They might not like what I have to say sometimes, so I can be quite candid with. So you're stuck in this position, but it's everyone else's fault, or it's something that's happened in the
Victim
environment.
mentality.
Take control of it. Like, what do you want the outcome to be? And what steps do you need to take to get there? Let's break the steps down and stop thinking about what is the external environment. And some people don't like to hear that. They usually come round in the end. But
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, I'd say that I'm yeah, I can be a bit of the tough love. I'm sure if you spoke to any of my girls, they would say the same. Kind of tough love mentality.
What is your perfect employee in terms of from a application? You know, let's walk through it. So now, you know, what would you call the person who actually wants a job, who, you know, from the attitude to the CV strength,
Mm,
education,
yeah.
and in the work, and then jumping into the workplace this Thursday, 2 years down the line, 5 years.
Yeah, so you use the exact word that I would always overemphasize, which is attitude. And we get and throughout my career in the various roles I've been in, we've had, I've seen hundreds of CVs. Generally, they're all uh, that's the kind of table stakes, isn't it? Like a good degree from a good university. They generally are maths, economics, but more actually in finance now, we get more people that have come through like the natural sciences background, engineering. So there's a broader mix, but generally it's a high quality degree from a high quality institution. But that pool is still massive. Um, but the attitude is definitely I would overemphasize that. Someone who's just willing to be curious, always want to learn, always want to do more. And I don't mean more always in terms of just outputs, in terms of like what they can deliver in their day to day. It's not about hours at the desk, but there's just a certain, and it is attitude, but it's
They're in it. They're in it because they want
and
to.
they look left and right all the time. Like they're not thinking, "This is my job. This is what I do." I come in at 8, I go home at
Or
7.
at
Like,
10 to 5.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of done. It's like they always, yeah, always looking left and right, and it doesn't matter what level of seniority you're at. And Chatham has an amazing culture, but culture doesn't happen like without intention. Like, we're very intentional about who we hire for that attitude. And when we bring new people in, they always say, "Wow, for a financial services firm, like this culture is amazing. How do you create this?" And I think you create it through the people you hire. And that same kind of attitude of, it's a kind of can do. Um,
So
we've
how many people do you employ?
so globally, I mean, it moves around a lot, but globally we're about 800 people.
800.
Yeah.
So you got offices in Krakow, Indonesia,
Yeah, well, the
Australia.
Eastern European office actually changed because we did an acquisition. Yeah, so Australia, Asia, um, America, so 3 offices in the US, London, Amsterdam. Yeah, lots people all over the place.
Well, yeah, that was good.
Mm.
Let's talk about economics, and this is my personal interest. I'm curious. Anything? Where do you think the UK economics are in the next 5 to 10 years?
Am I allowed to be really negative?
100%, 100%. And I'm gonna
um,
catch you on what you said in before as well, in regards to productivity and I'm a little bit of
AI.
my own words put in the imperialism mentality,
Yeah.
ride on that wave still.
Hmm.
Well, no, really.
Yeah. So, without getting into the politics of it, because the current government is pursuing an anti-growth agenda, and
And what's the reason for that?
well, I can give you my own personal
Yeah,
reasons.
no,
Like
it's only yeah.
it's lowest common denominator. There's the whole hate the wealthy, or no, there's no reward. They don't want people to have excessive rewards for success. So it's all like dumb everything down, lowest common denominator.
Socialism.
Make I mean, the number of people that are welfare dependent or economically inactive, that's a captive voter base then, isn't it? Because if you don't revote that government back in, then you're not going to get paid. And that's a real concern, especially as we look at the UK relative to other countries. Now, I won't give them too much of an out. What they adopted from the last government, because of the COVID situation, was a horrendous fiscal position. I need to try and reduce that deficit. But instead of thinking pro growth and putting in place policies to encourage working, productivity, entrepreneurship, business investment, they've gone the other way to say, all of the people and businesses that can create that growth, we're just going to keep taxing them. So we'll take more away to pay all these people that are not contributing anything. Now, you need to have a welfare state. You need to have, there should be a safety net, and the people who can pay should provide that safety net. But again, this isn't my quote, someone else's. That safety net shouldn't become a hammock.
Mm.
It should be a temporary, like, help people if they're out of work or they're unwell or they have disabilities that mean they don't have the same access to opportunities or whatever it is. But all of that should be a bridge to bring them back to the workforce or help them start a business or incentivize them to do that. And again, people would give me a hard time for saying that, but I can see it from both sides. I say I was brought up in a family with zero means, like literally surviving week to week, no luxuries. And I say that like, we rented a TV. You had to put 50p's in the back of it to watch
Oh,
TV.
really? Wow.
There was no car.
And they said communism was bad.
Never went on holiday. Like, I mean, a very basic living. And
Wow.
I'm not complaining about it, but a very basic living. And I could see that you need to incentivize people to want to be self-sufficient. And through all the kind of political changes that happened, obviously the Thatcher era, which is very difficult. I mean, where I lived in Scotland, unemployment extremely high. We're an industrial, Glasgow's a big industrial city, shipbuilding, steelmaking, coal mining, like decimated, absolutely decimated.
Could
But
have been done better?
so the only thing I would say is the decision, all of those industries were not, they were all heavily subsidized. They couldn't compete because the unions controlled like the
Mm.
wages, etc. And I'm really simplifying it. In hindsight, I think the mistake that was made is all of those workers, mainly men, although I guess some women as well, in some of the textile factories in Glasgow, they were given no support to retrain for what was going to be a service economy. So we moved from an industrialized city and economy to just decimated. Unemployment really high, all these young men in their 40s and they couldn't do anything else. They'd worked in the steelworks their whole life. There was nothing to help them transition. Now, a lot of people did leave the UK. Then that's why you find, again, in Scotland, you find Scottish people everywhere. In Australia and America, there's like, we have to go somewhere else to make a living. So they are people who maybe being a little bit more entrepreneurial, but it really left behind a very kind of bad taste and huge levels of unemployment. So where we are today, we're in a service economy, and people have gone to university and they've become into finance and these jobs that are much more kind of service orientated rather than industrial. But now we have this huge wave of people, and it is a big number of economically inactive people. So that means that they are not working, but they are not looking for work either. I mean, they're not looking for work.
Well,
Um,
I know
uh,
from my
and you think you have to address that. You have to address that. So the bigger picture challenges from my perspective is if you continue to put disincentives in place, either through regulation policy or taxation, for the people who are creating the tax revenue, that pie just shrinks. It gets smaller and smaller, but the number of people that have to try and eat the pie is getting bigger and bigger.
was it 10 is it I can't remember, is it 5, 10? What's the number?
Economically inactive is about 12 million.
12 million.
Mhm. And the
And it
youth unemployment, so that's ages 16 to 24 or 25 in the UK, is growing massively. And these are kids that are not in education, not in employment. Now, if you lose that period of your life with not gaining any experience and going
mm,
back to the confidence issue, that's very hard to then like turn around like later. So I do really worry about what the UK looks like in 10 years' time. But it's more, you've got to look at it relative to other countries. You've got to look outside our little island and say, okay, but is it a case that there are so many other more attractive places to go? So those people that are entrepreneurial, or just have a bit more kind of get up and go, they'll look and they'll just leave. And then your tax base shrinks further and the brain drain. So kids going to university and getting their education in the UK, but then leaving because they just don't see the opportunities here. And I just believe the way you fix that is you have to incentivize business investment and you have to incentivize people to want to work.
So when you spoke to the Keir Stammer and you
Mm.
told him, did he wrote it down saying, I'll look into it?
Politicians, we I think our little theme that's run through all the different facets of our conversation has been about long term,
Mm,
like think long term.
but we nice.
Politicians can't think long term. They're always just thinking about re-election. The parliamentary term is pretty short. And if you're going back to Thatcher, like her or loathe her, she took a long-term view and she had very clear core values on what she thought Britain needed to look like over the long term. And that meant taking some real short term pain, which would have obviously risked her political career. Fortunately, things started to turn when the next election came and she was re-elected. But I don't see anything across any political party
But that's
at
democracy
the
for you,
moment
right?
where they're willing to take a long-term view for the greater goods of the economy, and the country in general versus their short-term political career. And again, I anyone kind of listening to this would say, "Oh, well, she's in high finance or she lives in London, and that's kind of on the kind of capitalist side." I have to keep reminding people of I've seen it throughout the whole spectrum because I didn't get to this position
No, it's
through
pragmatism. It's pragmatism. It's intelligence.
or through any
Uh,
intergenerational I'm sure if my grandfathers were still alive, they would be you wouldn't be allowed to say Margaret Thatcher's name in the same room as them.
yeah, I'm sure my mom will be listening. She wouldn't agree in certain aspects of it, but I, I see it from my end as well, and I agree. I agree.
Mhm, mhm.
It's where's it going is not good news. So talking about where's it going, so where's it shifting? Who's nailing it now? Who is it? So now with the current situation as well, with recent Iran, Ukraine and Russia, Israel. Where's the global economy shifting? Because Dubai is not safe haven anymore because people is being
Yeah.
destabilized, and showed how quickly can it be.
Yeah, and I think the UK media is probably not misrepresented it, but certainly giving you one side of that story in terms of the Emirates and Saudi, well, that whole region. But yeah, you're right. I think people went there saying, "Well, why would you live in London when your mobile phone gets stolen in the street? Why would you live in New York where you can get shot in the street? You go to Dubai or Abu Dhabi; it's so safe. It's safe for children." But maybe underestimating where that region sits geopolitically and its neighbors around it, and obviously how Iran's reacted after the initial attack. But I still think those regions will continue to see people want to live there, and however long this lasts. I still think they will be attractive areas for people to go, maybe not to the same levels. The US is always a big draw and especially for British people, because there's no language barrier and huge opportunities, especially in finance, right? You think I heard someone once say that if you're in finance, no matter what you do, you should try and spend some of your career in New York because it just gives you such a kind of broad view. The challenge of going to America at the moment is the visa entry situation is extremely hard. While Trump is tightening up on illegal immigration, it has spilled over into kind of all types of
Right.
immigration. So, but if you're working for a business that's willing to sponsor your visa to go, then I could see that continuing to be an attractive move. And we mentioned just as a bit of a side comment, but when you look at the investments that are happening in AI, and it's such a buzzword. So it's hard to kind of generalize because it is moving so fast. I mean, I see it in my business. It's unbelievable. And people are very concerned that there's going to be the massive job losses and huge layoffs because everything's going to be done by AI. And I'm slightly more positive about it, which is it is just a shift in the skills you need to have as an individual, and AI will elevate you. So if you have, you can't take away the human element, right?
Mm.
Like the human part of what we do in our businesses. So if you are using AI tools or autonomous agents, all that does is it's taken away all of the admin and all the routine stuff, and it will elevate you as an individual. But going back to our previous comment about when those towns in the UK moved from the kind of post-industrial towns to, and we moved to a service economy.
How are you just so you connected to that? That's like literally we're going in circle, right? So literally,
But
yeah, go.
how do
Mm.
you get people to sit up and take notice and say, okay, this is coming? Is it, am I going to make sure it's good for me? Like, what do I need to do today to make sure? So, because during that industrial change that happened, people resisted it. They went out on strike and it was coming. So I'm saying, don't resist it, embrace it, learn about it. And if my husband listens to this, he'll be smirking because he's been telling me for years. He said the bit that's missing for you need to learn to code because he's a computer programmer.
I know, don't worry about it.
And I had my oldest daughter do computer science, and she can code. And he said, it will come one day and you'll have to learn. So I was in New York last week and I came home and I was telling him about my Claude code work. And he's like, I told you it
So
was
you think
coming.
it, so you think
Mm.
that coding is relevant still?
Well, I think it's what I was saying to him is actually, I don't need to learn to code because Claude can do it all for me. But
Mm.
what you need to do is you need to learn how to how to prompt it to run code, to do things for you. And you also need to know when it's wrong, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
there's there's still a lot of, and that's what I was saying, and we talked about this last week actually with my senior leadership team. Like the bit that's still missing is trust. Like people don't trust AI. It hallucinates, it gives you the wrong answer. And you still need to be an expert in what you do so that you can challenge it and know that's not right, or, I need to take this in a different direction. But I'm coming back to that. How do we, as colleagues, business leaders, parents, mentors, how do we get people to sit down, take the long term view, and say, okay, this is coming. What does it mean for me in my job, in my life? And I still see lots of people going, oh, yeah, we've heard it all before. This big transformation that was going to like make us all redundant. And here we are. And
I,
I'm
I
saying this is different.
I think we're not far away from Terminator 2. No, I know it sounds a bit out there, right? But it's like, I mean, so I was speaking to ChatGPT, right? I was getting like, well, let's have a conversation. And saying, what's the problem in the globally? Problem is pollution. I said, so what's the job of AI? AI
Yeah.
job is to help humans to make it better and to make it sustainable engines.
Mm,
I said, so where's the problem? And the answer was, oh, China and America producing the most pollution. I'm going right. Okay, so who runs the
yeah.
pollution? Humans. So that's bottom
Yeah.
line is finding a solution to the problem. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, the biggest problem on Earth is humans. There is
Yeah.
no other animal on the planet, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, this is a bit longer term. But we're
Yeah.
talking about a bit shorter. I just don't. People say it's a bubble. I don't think
Mm.
AI is not a bubble.
Well,
It
people say it's a bubble with regard to the valuations of the stocks that are related to AI. So they're saying it's an asset bubble in the all of these companies, whether they're the chip makers, whether they're the software providers, all of their values are just like stratospheric, right? If you look at Nvidia and the
yeah, yeah.
text. So people are saying that's a bubble because will it end up being a commodity? That's the question. Do the companies that are, call it, involved in AI, where their valuations and their other companies have gone up so much, but will they just all end up cannibalizing each other and it just becomes a commodity? And
Mm.
that's when I'm kind of moving into my investment
No, no, no,
thinking
no.
mode now, but that's the bigger question. I sort of think about it the other way, which is, can you ever, when Microsoft first as a software platform like came and and you were using it, right? Then they kind of changed their model a little, and then you get all the other things added on, like Word and Excel, and then the new version of Outlook. And can you imagine a time where you wouldn't have a Microsoft operating system? You're captive. Like, you're captive. You have to keep upgrading it, when the new one comes out, because then your apps don't work because you need the new system. And I know that a lot of the AI kind of bots, or people are just using the free versions. But then you get the teaser, don't you? Oh, just for 5.99 a month, you can get the pro version that gives
Yeah.
you better
So,
answers.
mm,
And before
marketing has always been there, right?
and before you know it, I mean, I even see it. So my children are a bit older, but I heard a colleague talking about, and she was saying, I can't imagine not having AI now when I'm helping my kids with their homework. You're already like addicted.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. The stock market valuation is a different question. I think the questions we need to be asking ourselves as human beings, as leaders and workers, is, what does this mean for me? What do I need to learn? How should I think about it? But I also need to be very open minded to say things are moving so fast that in
Crazy
a
speed.
year's time I might need to course correct a little, just depending on how these different applications have developed and grown.
So going back to the movement of global economy, you think
Mhm.
states or things like Singapore? Uh,
Singapore is small. I mean, it is small, but it is an attractive economy. It's got its downsides as well. But in terms of scale, it's China versus the US, right?
but China
Um,
won't let.
they're the two global powers in every sense,
Are
and
we inviting foreign investors? Or are we just keeping everything under
in
the
America,
now in China?
yeah, they go about things slightly differently. But if you were to look kind of 5 years ahead, I can't. It will be the US and China as the dominant economic powers. And then the question is just, what other countries side with who? Like, who ends up on the US side and who ends up on the China side? I don't know the answer to that, but it's an interesting, the way the kind of chips are falling in this most recent conflict is throwing up some interesting dilemmas around global relationships, right? If you
Mm,
look at Iran, China, Russia,
India.
like, where does, I mean, India's obviously now had to take the Russian oil, but where does that kind of fit? And it's so much deeper than anyone, even we know, right? And I'm a
Yeah, yeah,
I'm a
exactly.
total news junkie, and I read news from lots of different sources, not mainstream media stuff, and I try and understand. And I know that I'm barely scraping the surface of what is really going on underneath.
There's some clever
But
people out there.
yeah, but I also think you just can't. The US, I mean, it's a massive country, completely self sufficient in almost every way. Um, the strength, the dollar as a reserve currency, the
But the
the US
people,
consumer.
I was shocked how productive
Mhm,
US people are.
mhm,
And that's like going into the first world country that they don't allow to have a mentality, going back to the imperialism of a Roman mentality. It
mhm,
doesn't look like the country will collapse within itself or empire of US will
mhm,
collapse because people work.
mhm.
Like their
Yep.
work ethic is
Yeah,
is
and I
big.
think that whole, again, it's a bit of a kind of historical cliche of the kind of the American dream, that anyone can make it in the US. Like, you can be entrepreneurial, you have access to capital. That's important. There are incentives for business investment. There are incentives for growth. People want to better their circumstances.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they want to improve for their family opportunities. So yeah, again, it's for people outside the US, the ability to go there if you're not a citizen or you don't have a kind of visa sponsorship is hard.
Let's talk go quickly on oh well quickly
Mhm.
in your industry. What does your company do in simple terms?
So we are capital markets advisors, and Our client base is not exclusively, but predominantly alternative asset investors. So everything within the private capital world. So that would be, real estate, private equity, infrastructure, so all private credit. So all of the capital, if you think about public markets, so stock markets, public equities, public bonds, then the other side of the market is everything private capital, so not quoted in the public markets. And we help them with capital markets decisions, whether it's kind of around debt structuring. The hub of our business, like the core and what we're most known for, is on hedging. So interest rates, foreign exchange, helping them understand the risk exposures within a transaction or within, just a fund or a situation. We advise them on how to hedge that risk, and then we go into the market and we execute derivatives to hedge whatever that exposure is. Super simple. But I always kind of explain that in a lot of detail depending on who I'm talking to. But ultimately,
I'm more like a 4-year-old child.
but ultimately, coming back to the AI point, it's a people business. Everything we do is about relationships. We build relationships with clients. They trust us. They trust us with the most confidential information about the deals and transactions they're working on. And they trust us to make the right decision in recommending how they should be managing their risk. So when I come back to how AI is impacting our business, I keep coming back to that point of, but we're a trust business and we can
Mm,
use AI to elevate and become more efficient, deliver faster and better to our clients. But yeah, it's about relationships.
okay. Where's current investment opportunities lie within your company in terms of where you're trying to? Is it multiple different ventures, or something stands out a bit more? If you can disclose that kind of
Yeah, so
information.
we're a private company owned by our employees. So we're as owners, employees, shareholders in the business. So we don't kind of publish anything out into the public domain. But I would say that the opportunities for us in terms of our kind of strategic growth, where we want to kind of invest for growth, certainly AI. So and
So
we
that's the next big boom, you would say?
It's already here. It's not even the next thing, it's already here. We made a little acquisition last year of a kind of AI consulting business. And, that team that came over, they're kind of helping us and they're helping our clients as well. But yeah, so how do we invest in that to elevate our talent? So we need to leverage our human resources. We'll be assessing acquisitions as well, looking at other businesses. As I said, my business was an acquisition for Chatham,
Hmm.
and there are always acquisition opportunities all the time.
So if the next boom is already here in terms of
Mhm,
AI,
mhm.
what would be the next after that?
Well, I think it's about kind of retraining people to take advantage of what AI can offer.
So social?
I don't think we'll end up with fewer people, but we'll end up with people that have to do different things. And yeah, that's the transitional challenge that we have to think about. And certainly for our business, we're working with the biggest sponsors in the world, and they'll be looking at their opportunities. And I think the next big growth thing for us is that they will come to us more to help them rather than build a fixed cost base within their own firm, is to use us as a third party deep subject matter expert in what we do, to help them make those financial and capital markets decisions.
For for generation of the younger ones, what would you advise in regards to, apprenticeship versus experience versus a university?
I mean, it's very hard to generalize on that. I will say university's not for everyone. And you remember it was really under the kind of Tony Blair government where they made this big push to say, we want to get X percentage of school leavers into university. And it just ended up with people doing like Mickey Mouse degrees because they were like, oh, I can go to university.
History.
They're racking up all this debt, which they have no, and the way that student debt is currently structured, obviously, it's changed, which is why there's a lot of controversy about it at the moment. They're racking up all this debt, which they have no ability to repay. It's not improving their job chances, and they actually haven't learned anything. So, university is not for everyone. I think you need to decide, do I have a specific passion or interest in a subject? And do I want to study it in depth? Or do I have a very clear career pathway that I want to follow that requires me to have a university degree in this subject to do it? Think long term. Is
Mm,
that's the route I want to go? Um, so yeah, I think the whole apprenticeship model is much more suitable for people to pursue. It allows them to study and get work experience at the same time without the kind of debt that comes with it. Um, I think the challenge is, and I don't even know the numbers, but people keep telling me that we're going to have this huge shortage of what I would call old style apprentices, like plumbers and electricians,
it's
and
mega money.
like
It's mega
because
money.
people were like, "Oh, they're like the kind of like grubby
Well, that's
jobs.
it. That's what
I want
used
an
to.
office job." So
Yeah.
I'm sort of saying to young people, if if you're good, if you're practical and you're good at that, go and learn
I mean, I
that
paid the
kind of
electrician
career.
£3, 320 quid a day.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, it's like,
Claude can't do that for you. Yeah,
that's like, and the guy came in a van,
yeah,
smart, well spoken,
mm,
really nice, really people, and his here we go, 320, not including materials.
yeah,
That's like, and he was there for 4 days.
yeah.
Okay, so
So again, I would say do not think that university is an automatic route.
I agree.
It's not for everyone.
I'd try to steer my kids away from it.
Mhm,
Even though if you're intelligent, you've got a drive and you've got a work ethic, which is
mm,
by far more important.
mm,
And what are you gonna come out with 75 grand debt?
mhm,
What are you gonna
at
do
least.
afterwards?
Mhm.
It's like,
But
and
if they want a pathway, if they have a career pathway that requires a
yeah, I
degree,
suppose, yeah,
if you
yeah,
want to be a vet, a dentist, a doctor, like you need to get the degree. Certainly in finance, there are a couple of different entry routes now.
yeah,
It doesn't always need to be through a degree, but there is still a requirement to study. So even if you came into finance direct from school with your A levels, then you will still be expected to study something like a professional qualification or some sort of certification. So it doesn't get you, if people are thinking that's the route to go because they don't want to be studying and sitting exams, then that's also not the right decision.
what do you think is the most important skills uh at this day and age? What matters the most?
I mean, given what we've talked around AI, I think the people skills, and that's generic, so it's communication. Um,
That's the second interview or
yeah.
guest that we have. Well, same thing. This is
And the thing I would say is being a good communicator is not about talking, it's about listening.
I'm learning.
Good. Glad to hear it, Benny. Okay,
Right.
great.
Um, so impact on of AI on education. So we talked about a lot about the industries. What about the education itself? You know,
I mean, again, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because it's giving kids access to information and knowledge that they never had before. I mean, you think, when I did my homework by candlelight, there was
yeah,
no internet, couldn't even phone a friend to ask for help because we didn't have a telephone. Um, but well, we had a landline, but we didn't. You could only make calls at certain times of the day, so it was too expensive to make them other times. So the whole it feels like there's just this huge amount of information and knowledge for them to tap into and use to their advantage. Um, so that's the benefit. The downside is there will be many jobs which AI can effectively replace, and kids at school age now making decisions, they can't forecast what that's going to be, right? You don't know. But you could say, kind of generally, any rules that are around repetitive processing type tasks are more likely to be automated versus things that require human interaction or something that requires more like creativity.
Mm,
And even the creative industries, right? I saw that I read an article in the week about the an author who'd written a book and she just got it published and then it was withdrawn because someone had read it and they had put it into an AI chat and asked it, was this written by AI? And they came back and said like 95% or whatever, it was written by AI. So the publisher's withdrawn it and now she's claiming, she's like, no, I wrote it. It's a fiction book and I wrote it. And now she's kind of going through that battle because that's what I was thinking. If you're in the creative industries, if that's your pursuit, where does AI help you or hinder you?
mm.
And I think you have to decide how to make it help you. And it'll be different in different sectors and industries for sure. Mm.
Yeah, that's interesting because yeah, I know a few people who are in the creative industry. It's like, but going back to don't fight it. Find a
Mm.
way how to use it to your
Yep.
advantages
Embrace it.
and
Yeah.
embrace it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So work life.
Yeah.
How does Jackie manages to bring up two kids, global offices
Hmm.
across the globe,
Yeah.
many offices, flying all the time, busy mom, busy.
Yeah. You like I said in one of your earlier questions, you've got to accept the sacrifices, and the people in your life are also making the sacrifices, right? My girls had to sacrifice their mum not being there for every school event or not always being there every night to like have dinner. Same with my husband. I'm sure he would. I was going to say maybe he doesn't want me at home every night, but he's not got a wife that's there all the time, and
That's a reason why you're still married.
because he never has to see me that often. But yeah, and I think that had come up in one of your pre-questions, which is don't underestimate the choice that you make as a life partner. That think take the long-term view and having someone that supports the decisions you're making, your career, and the sacrifices you have to make. And it's an interesting. I'm making this up as a fiction story, but it's quite real, where people get married and the females are kind of very career driven, very successful. And that's what the man admires about her. Oh, she's very independent, like career.
From
And
my own
then
experience.
and then 10 years down the line, domestic life is tough. You're arguing about childcare. You've both got competing demands with your jobs. And suddenly it's like, well, I don't like the fact that you've got a career and you have to be away all the time. You're like, but that's the reason you were attracted in the first place. But now it's actually a negative.
Mm.
So that whole kind of shared values, and I'm not saying it's been plain sailing because it absolutely has not. Where I need to be in one country, he travels as well. How do we manage this? We have paying for childcare, like using other people, and the girls kind of understanding that mum and dad have these like very demanding jobs that require us to be away or work very long
Who's
hours.
more successful, you or your husband?
Depends on which measure you're using.
Hmm. The happiness. Obviously.
He is extremely successful, and excellent at what he does. But again, he would say the same thing. It's about making the sacrifices. But what I would say is, I think I think my kiddos probably found it harder when they were younger because they don't quite understand. They just know I'm not there, and there's an au pair or someone else is like looking after them. But we were very good at always carving out. I mean, I'll always work on holiday. Like I will always work when I'm away, but dedicating time and then the kids go to bed. And you like catch up your emails, you maybe make some calls, make sure things are kept ticking along. So we always dedicated time. We've had amazing family holidays. But the girls also now recognize that the reason we could have such amazing family holidays is because mum and dad both worked full time. Like, the benefits are but they get the sacrifices that kind of come with
It's
them.
a tough one to manage.
It is, and it depends on what age they're at. But now, like, now that they're older, and I mean, they'll still say, "Oh, but, mum wasn't always there," and I say, "Well, neither was dad, remember?" Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
not just, the kinda default parent situation. But I've had some interesting conversations, recently with, some female contacts that came off their career trajectory when they had children. And this one conversation I had with someone who has a daughter, and she's pushing her very hard to do well in her A levels and go to university and have this career, potentially in finance. That's why she was asking for my advice. And the daughter is like, "Yeah, like, because you're a role model, not like." eh, And the other's like, "But I sacrificed so that you could do it." And she was like, "Well, I don't think you did
Yeah,
really.
it's like
You made a choice, and don't impose your ambition on me."
yeah, it's like a
Like,
dad smoking a fag with a pint, watching his son playing football and go harder. It's like it's a bit one of those, you know?
yeah. So I sort of think, I would hope that that my girls would say, well, the sacrifices were tough, but it gave us choices. It gives a lifestyle which they benefit from. They've both had amazing educations, which don't
Do
come.
they feel loved and content?
I
Do
think
you
you'd
think?
have to ask them that.
True. But do you know, as a
They-
as a parent, do they have an
Mhm.
attitude of? I mean, it's hard to compare because you don't live with all kids, I suppose. Is
Yeah,
it any of
yeah, and I don't think I mean, and that's, gosh, that's
because it's two girls and they
you
just passed
can't,
the teenage.
because you make a decision to pursue a career. It doesn't. You can't love your children any less. I mean, you just love them so unconditionally
Mm,
all the time, and you don't need to be physically present for them to feel that. In fact, I would argue the other way. Like, I'm sure there are lots of mums that don't pursue careers and are home all the time and are probably, it could be unhappy in their choices, and
mm.
and maybe not then creating a secure, happy home environment. I love what I do. I love the fact that I could still pursue a career and be, a mum and a wife and everything that comes with that. As I say, making the sacrifices and being grateful that my family were also willing to make the sacrifices that they had to make. But I don't think presence equals love at all.
You
And
don't overcompensate? Do you find yourself overcompensating?
what do you mean in terms
Well,
of
like,
spoiling
yeah,
them?
spoiling can become in
Mm,
different ways.
mm,
But in terms of
nope,
spoiling, like presents, cars,
nope.
you know, no.
And I'll give you one example. Whenever my children receive gifts, financial gifts from anyone else throughout their whole lives, I tax it.
Nice,
So they don't need, they have everything they
excellent.
need, and they call it the mummy tax.
How much was the tax
Oh,
percentage?
huge, like
How's it?
90%. Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it? Oh,
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
excellent.
Because why would, if someone gives them £10, they're like, oh, you go to the shop and buy a little toy, and you're like, they don't need another piece of plastic toy, but they can have a £1 and buy
They
some sweets,
they
and I
teach you
would
the
I
money
would
of value.
take 9. And throughout the years, so like birthdays, Christmases, or people would come visit, give them some money.
So you don't
Yeah.
really like earn a lot of money. You
So they
just live
would
off your
so they would
parents,
say,
of your kids.
they would, and they would like volunteer it. Oh, mum, you have to take the mummy tax.
Oh,
And
bless.
then when Eva, my oldest daughter, was leaving to go to university, she went to Edinburgh and then she went to Vancouver. Actually, she did a year at UBC. And the mummy tax that had been collected throughout her whole 18 years, which had been invested in the stock market, allowed her to do that so that we didn't fund it. So she, and of course, she's then saying, "Oh, I'm self-funding it." And I said, "Yeah, because you've all of the mummy tax has kind of gone." So
That's very good, huh?
I don't believe, I always try and make the distinction between spoiled and privileged. My children are exceptionally privileged because we
Do they
live,
know that?
absolutely, like, they've both went to great schools. Say we've had amazing family holidays. They live in a nice house in a like secure, supported environment. That's a privilege. But in terms of spoiled, they pay their way. And, you know, uh, uh, say Eva's now graduated and has started work, but she was very aware throughout her university years of the loans that she was racking up. She budgeted extremely well. She used to have, I hope she won't mind telling this story, she would complain about, because obviously inflation was very high. And during the years when she was at university in the 22, 23, 24, and she was complaining about the cost of iceberg lettuce, that she had this little index that had gone from whatever, like 75p to now it was like £1.75. And she studied economics, so she gets the inflation. But she's like, oh, I have to like take a bus to the Aldi further away because it's cheaper there. And that's not someone who's spoiled. Mhm.
That's very good. But
Mhm.
taking buses as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah, the
Yeah,
public transport.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. And I mean, would be very interested one about choosing a right partner.
Yeah, I mean, I met Chris. I was 25 or 26. So I'd had lots of kind of dating relationships, since I was in my late teens. So I think by the time you get to that age, I'm not saying you know what you want, but you know what you don't want. And we met through work, and we worked in the same place. We had to keep that quiet for a while, when we were dating. But I think there was just I am quite practical and so is he. And whilst there's a kind of emotional connection when you meet someone and it's all like amazing, and in the first couple of months together, we established pretty quickly that we had very similar like core values.
And he's
And
Scottish as well.
he is Scottish, yes. He's originally from Aberdeen, and he went to Glasgow to study, and that's where we met. We actually did the same degree at the same university, but we didn't know each other.
Oh wow, how was that?
He was probably too cool for me at university. He was a bit of a cool dude. I wasn't. And yeah, so we met in our working life. So I think that whole really taking that long term view again, and takes a little bit of emotional maturity as well. And we both kind of wanted the same things. We worked in the similar industries, so it was easy for us to both understand the kind of pressures that we were under at various times in our careers. And so that's good. I think that's good to have someone that just gets it. And, we knew, and even though he knew I wanted to really pursue my career, that I did want to have children and, have a family life. And, I think you can do both. And I have no issue with the kind of joke and say, my youngest daughter was like, you can be the boss bitch, like in the week, which I'm not at all.
Mm.
But then come the weekend, I'm quite happy to be a trad wife. Like, I like to cook. I'm not brilliant, but I like to cook. I take pride in the home that we have and all of that. It doesn't need to be either or. But I think having someone yeah, you've got to have those shared core values, because when the shit hits the fan, and it will, like just will, things will happen in your life. That's got to be the thing that keeps you together on how you make decisions when you're going through kind of difficult times, like redundancies, job loss. My mother died very suddenly. His mother was sick and she died last year. And we don't live in Scotland, so that like some of the career stuff we've talked about, you cannot get through that with a partner if you don't have those shared core values. And that is when you're making that life partner choice, once you get through the first blush of the lust and the romance and everything, it's really got to take that very long term view. Can you get through? I'm not very traditional. We did have a traditional wedding, but that whole the vow things, for better or for worse, and people say it. I
But
don't
we don't
think,
mean it. Yeah.
because the worst will come. Even if you have a really great life, the worst will come. You'll face some really difficult times, whether it's, let's say, financial, career, health. There will be tough things to come, and you won't get through them as a couple if you're not bound like that.
So when you said you cook and you do some house,
Well,
is that your switch off? Do you ever switch off? You say
no,
you mentioned on the holidays, but you still send emails.
no, I'm just not that. I've made peace with the fact that I'm a all or nothing type person, and
Good job you didn't have drugs. I'm talking about that. Yes. Sorry about career. How did you dodge that
in what,
in your
sorry?
career? because finance is is all about being flash,
Mhm.
and partying and champagne, and the deals are made and things like that. How do you keep yourself grounded and
Yeah, I like champagne. Yeah, and but I wouldn't think I was talking to someone about kind of drug culture in general because it's
mm,
different for our. Because I worry about it more as a mother and what my children are exposed to. Because drugs are much cheaper now
yeah,
than they
it's
were
cheaper than
when I
alcohol.
was at
Yeah.
university. But yeah, I mean, the drug scene's I've been exposed to it throughout my life in various ways. It's just never been my thing. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, I love a gin and tonic and a glass of champagne, but the kind of moderation of the heady bits of your life, I find that quite easy because I've always been in sport,
Mm,
and that kind of balance of the kind of other side of it. But from a work perspective, I'm a kind of all or nothing, which is why I had a bit of a career shift in 2003, 2004. And when I moved from asset management to consultancy, and at first in my head, I thought, oh, this could be a kind of like slower paced type job. I could like coast along for a few years. I've got a young child. I can just be really strict with my hours. I was taking a massive pay cut, like a massive pay cut. And it was my husband actually who's just like, don't kid yourself on, Jackie. He said, you're taking a massive pay cut and you work just as hard because you don't do it for the money.
you said that,
You're
yeah.
just in it, and you won't tolerate things not being done properly, correct. Like he said, you just won't. So you'll still be working horrendously long hours, weekends and holidays, just getting paid less. And I'm fine with that. But don't kid yourself on that. The other thing about the life partner choice is they have to call you out in your BS, and he will call me out in my BS all the time to say
Do you
like
call him
that.
out
Oh,
on that as well?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You've got to be really kind of honest. And I also sort of see your partner should be, your biggest advocate, but your biggest critic,
100%.
and have to kind of balance both. But so yeah, that's just a kind of little side comment.
So, role in the fitness and health, I think, yes, you talked about the swimming and
Mhm.
carry on doing your Pilates. From a coach point of view, I probably suggest you do some strength and conditioning.
Oh, sorry, I do.
Oh, you do?
I do. Yeah, I've had this.
Sorry, it's not a pitch, by the way.
Absolutely. No, I'm doing I have a little gym at home. We're very lucky. We actually put it in we were building it just before lockdown. Obviously we didn't know that was coming. And it was finished like 2 weeks before we went into lockdown. So
So before everything escalated.
that was good timings.
Yeah,
Then we
yeah.
had the gym. So yeah, I do strength training there, and I have a little online trainer that I just kind of do. Although I've had this hip injury for a while, which has been holding me back a little. But yeah, so strength training. I'm really not doing any cardio at all. But I miss running. I don't miss the cycling, I have to say.
No. Oh.
I've still got my Ruby.
Oh dear.
Yes, I kind of look at it in the garage every few weeks.
Well, you should join us. We run every
Yeah,
Wednesday, 6:30 from the shop.
yeah. If my hip gets better
When it
quite
gets better.
soon, I'll
Yeah.
yeah, because the running for me wasn't just a physical thing. It's a real I loved the whole kind of endorphin hit from running. It was
Yeah,
a
you get
good
a run
escape.
as a high. And
Yeah,
gets much more quicker than a bicycle.
yeah,
Because it's harder.
yeah, and also because I travel so much, when I was running a lot, I just loved the fact
It's just
that
the
it
trainers.
didn't matter where I was. Like a pair of
North, south.
trainers, like it
Mm.
doesn't like old t-shirt, pair of shorts, and I'd run in some amazing places. I go to New York a lot, and running
Central
around
Park.
Central Park is amazing. It really is amazing. So anyway, I'll come back to you on that.
Okay, cool. So your friendships
Mhm,
and personal, business and personal
mhm,
relationships. How, where's do you have kind of your professional environment and all your friends are there as well? And because you have things in common, the same level of
mhm.
intensity or the same type of interest, and that's enough for or do you have completely like a mumsies or like a girlfriends, which is, in completely
I'm a bit
different
of a
job?
mixture. A bit of a mixture, really. I mean, I would say that my professional colleagues through the years, so people that I no longer work with, but I've worked with in the past, that we've stayed friends. In that we'll go out of our way to kind of spend time together. So that's where you meet people professionally, but you have like a sort of personal interest or connections too. I have one sister. I would class her as a very close friend. I don't see her
Is she
that
older or
often.
younger?
She's older, which people are always surprised that when they don't know her, but they know me, and they're like, "Oh, you've got older sister vibes for sure." But
You do.
I'm the younger sister.
Ah,
She's
that's
older.
maybe a reason why you're competitive.
She's older than me. And yeah, she still lives in Scotland, and she has two sons. One of them lives in Australia, and the other one is still in Scotland. And her husband and my husband are like, people think it's them that are brothers, and then they've married these two females,
Oh,
and we
wow.
have to keep telling people no, it's us that are sisters, and they just married us, so they get on really well. So that's family, friends, kind of all mixed together. And then, yeah, I have a really good group of girlfriends, all pretty much still in Scotland, and they were people that I met. I mean, yeah, through having the children, because both my girls were born in Scotland, and we've stayed in touch. And I don't mean sort of just occasionally see each other. I don't see them so often because I live here and I travel so much. But yeah, we actually just had a weekend together in January where we have a whole weekend away, and we've got another trip coming up in May, like a girls' trip to Marrakesh.
Very nice.
So I'm only going to manage a weekend just because of work commitments, but they're actually going for the full week. So yeah, that's like, I know people that you meet through a kind of common purpose, with having the kids. We all had our kids at the same time. And yeah, then I've got some really good friends that I've met since we've moved here, like outside of a work environment. And yeah, spend a lot of time with them too
What does success mean to you now
at this stage in my career.
or in life in general?
Yeah, I think it's
Well, your life is your career.
yeah.
Yeah.
I never think about it as an outcome or like an end game. I think it's a continuous um every day do you kind of get up with a sense of being part of something, whether it's your family, your work. You've got to have a purpose to drive you. That's my measure of like personal success. Um,
Not to retire?
and do what?
Exactly. Exactly.
I say
Exactly
that
that.
though, but my husband and I have been talking about what would retirement look like for us in the future. We did decide that we couldn't retire at different times. That when we decide it's time, then we'll kind of retire at the same time from our jobs and careers. I don't think I would sort of see me just doing this sort of cliff edge of like getting to,
Hmm.
65 or 70 and then saying, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Like you say, what are you gonna do?
Uh,
Dig in the garden?
yeah. I'm playing golf. I'm a member at West Kent.
Oh.
Well, I'm a paying member at West Kent. I haven't been playing, but I said this year, I just paid my fees a few weeks ago, and I thought I'm going to play more this year, for sure. So and my husband plays golf too, so that's something we could do together. We do love to travel. We've traveled loads professionally and personally, but there's still a lot more we want to do. So yeah, I don't think about success as a defined, tangible outcome or a fixed point. It's the ongoing and always like making progress. Right. I do this when I talk to people about their year-end reviews and whatever. I'm like, it's not enough to come in and you did an amazing job last year. It's not enough to come in this year and do the same. It's got to be more or different or better every
Mm,
year. To me, if you want to use your strength training analogy, it's got to be progressive overload, right?
yeah.
You won't build or improve unless you're moving on. So I think that's my kind of measure of success. Am I doing better than I was last year? Based on based on the performance of the firm, of my team performing well, but also me individually got over this hip injury. I've managed to get back into training. I'm certainly getting my strength back. So that's success, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, has it changed over time?
The
Or is
measure
it?
of success.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're striving for different things at different points in your life, right? I think when you're starting out in your career, your success is more about kind of making your mark, and And whilst I keep saying, I'm not motivated by money, you're trying to get financial stability. And that's a measure of success when you know that you've you've managed to find a home and get a mortgage and get your kids into school, and you're striving for something quite different. So yeah, I think it does change over time. And now, as I say, since I've come into my 50s, I've probably slowed down a little. I used to live my life at 250 miles an hour. It's probably now just 200 miles an hour. So it definitely changes. And I said at the beginning, I am a voracious reader. I love reading. And my husband keeps challenging me to say, never mind the politics or like another, like continuing in finance beyond the age of 65 or whatever. Like, you should write a book. Like, yeah, I've got some ideas. So watch the space.
So, for a closing,
Mhm.
if you ran UK education,
Mhm.
what would you change?
Um, I think standards need to be higher. I feel we're in a sort of poverty. Yeah, my husband used this phrase. I think he says it's like a poverty of ambition. It's like we've lowered the standards of what's acceptable. So I think we need to increase standards and set higher expectations, because if you set higher expectations for yourself and the people you're teaching, even if they don't surpass them, they'll still do better than they would do if you set low expectations,
Hmm.
right? I think we've got into a little bit of a, you get an award for showing up kind of thing as
Yeah.
opposed to actually performing. So I think that there's standards. I think there's also the whole financial education. I don't know if there's no room in the curriculum, then does everyone need to do geography? I, I'm sure people that have got a degree in geography will be like, absolutely. And I'll get trolled for saying that. But I feel that the life skills that people can learn through good financial education, and again, it doesn't need to be complex. This is like real, like finance 101 for your life, call it finance for life skills,
Hmm.
should be a mandatory core part of the curriculum.
And what would the advice that no one asks? What advice would you give to the listeners
About what?
in regards to their career, life, choosing the partner, etc.?
Life doesn't, you won't get the cards dealt to you in the order and the timing that you want them. You've just got to go with it and pursue the opportunity, take the opportunity. It's Yeah, I've had in some of the mentorship conversations I've had with people, they say, "Oh, this opportunity came up, but it's probably not the right time in my career for that." Well, when is it going to be the right time? And see, when you think it's the right time, do you think that opportunity will still be there? Like, just take it. You can't, this sort of like order that life is in this nice sequential, neat order that things are going to happen exactly when you need them or want them to happen. It's not, nobody's life works like that. So I just say, just like have a purpose, do something you love, and be really good at it. I will.
Jackie,
Thank you very
pleasure
much.
having you. You're
Thank
so
you.
switched on. Thank you for your time. Awesome.
Thank you.